Don in London, hello. May 31st. My videos are all about recovery from addiction to either substance and behaviour. So my substance, alcohol, my behaviour, equally addictive around people, places and things. Wanting to be in the right place with the right people, doing the right things, or having the right things. The accoutrement of life, as we know it through marketing and all the rest of it. So I was a very good consumer, and I worked hard for a long time. And I wore out, I guess. I had burnout in some of the profession I did, and that was a counsellor to people in business and other areas of living. And what did I do? Well, I put a bottle between me and them, me, them, an organisation, me, people, places and things. In the end I couldn't cope, because I was exhausted, and I'd become completely dependent and addicted to alcohol and what went with it. And for me it meant probably doing things which were not good for me for a long time besides drink. So these days life has changed, and before I share what recovery means to me and the fellowship of AA, Alcoholics Anonymous, I want to read from this book, The Desiderata of Happiness, which was around poems written around the time when the fellowship was just starting up. And one of the philosophers was Max Ehrmann in those days, in the maelstrom of what was alcohol doing to people, or what has it always done for people. In some places it just kept them alive because it killed bacteria in the water. It was killing me for sure. So desiderata, and I had the poster on my wall back in the 1960s. Thought it meant something, but didn't really have enough experience of life to understand it very well. And that's the most important part of life. Life continues, life experience continues, and we get more depth around what we feel and what we do. So desiderata. Go placidly amid the noise and the haste, and remember what peace there may be in silence. As far as possible, without surrender, be on good terms with all persons. Speak your truth quietly and clearly, and listen to others, even to the dull and ignorant. They too have their story. Avoid loud and aggressive persons. They are vexatious to the spirit. If you compare yourself with others, you may become vain or bitter, for always there will be greater and lesser persons than yourself. Enjoy your achievements as well as your plans. Keep interested in your own career. However humble, it is a real possession in the changing fortunes of time. Exercise caution in your business affairs, for the world is full of trickery. But let this not blind you to what virtue there is. Many persons strive for high ideals, and everywhere life is full of heroism. Be yourself. Especially do not feign affection, neither be cynical about love, for in the face of all aridity and disenchantment it is as perennial as the grass. Take kindly the counsel of the years, gracefully surrendering the things of youth. Nurture strength of spirit to shield you in sudden misfortune, but do not distress yourself with dark imaginings. Many fears are born of fatigue and loneliness. Beyond a wholesome discipline, be gentle with yourself. You are a child of the universe, no less than the trees and the stars. You have a right to be here. And whether or not it is clear to you, no doubt the universe is unfolding as it should. Therefore, be at peace with God, whatever you conceive him to be. And whatever your labours and aspirations, in the noisy confusion of life, keep peace in your soul. With all its sham, drudgery and broken dreams, it is still a beautiful world. Be cheerful, strive to be happy. And I guess really, when I look at that, I really didn't understand life very well for a long time. I had no balance in my life. I fell in love completely. I fell out of love completely. I worked as hard as I possibly could, changing career when it seemed that people wanted me to, and not really understanding what life could be, always feeling that life would get better if I got better at whatever I was doing. So scattered in all directions in many ways, and not able to cope with the outcomes that came along through life when I burnt out. And it took me a long time to realise what was going on, because it couldn't be happening to me. Denial was very strong. And I guess alcoholism and any addiction is probably best described as a disease of denial. You don't know you've got it till you've got it, and when you've got it you don't want it, and you'll use every ounce of willpower to prove and demonstrate not only to yourself but the rest of the world that you're not an addict, and that life is okay. And then we keep on breaking down and going back to our addictions to find oblivion from the senseless pain we're in. So in desiderata, if I'd really understood that, or maybe if it was okay to be me, if someone had said to me when I was young, it's okay to be you, and find out who you are on a daily basis, and find time to understand yourself rather than rush at life, scramble for the next right job with the right amount of money, scramble into relationships because it was okay to have lots of them, and not really wonder too hard about what was going to happen next. So blown around on a wave, if you like, oceans and oceans of storms, the ocean being alcohol in the end. Anyway, that was me. Enough of the poetry and waxing lyrical about the past. It was awful in many respects, but in there I did love a lot of people, and I did care deeply about my impact on them and how I conducted myself. I always try to be open and honest about that. But how can you be open and honest with other people when you don't know yourself too well? So the fellowship of AA, Alcoholics Anonymous, has helped me find my freedom to be me, freedom of choice in the moment of now, and to know that everybody else is striving to be whatever they think they ought to be, or feel they are today. So some of us are calamity, travelling along tram tracks which are laid down by fear, putting on a brave face, and a lot of ego, because we can't be wrong. We must be right. It all looks right, so why do I feel horrible? And then not having enough courage, faith and confidence to keep on changing as life changes, working with the life experience we're working with. Yeah. So fellowship, what's it done? Help me reduce my levels of fear, brave facing, putting on a brave face when things aren't right, and ego, reducing that part of me, and increasing my faith, courage and confidence to meet the day. So what is AA? Well, it's a fellowship of people, all each individual, unique and authentic, on their particular path of living, with one similarity. And it's summed up on this little card here. The AA preamble, which is shared at the beginning of meetings I go to, 700 plus in London, just for alcohol, and then there are the other substances as well, drugs and behaviour. I've worked out though that one fellowship is probably good to do at a time, simply because there are 12 steps of action. Each toolkit is pretty much the same, 12 steps of how to live a unique, authentic life, free to make choices as life is today. So it's not free to become the next president or prime minister or top of the class or top of this or that or the other. That's about endeavour and life working, and there are rare opportunities for that. Most of us just live life and get on and enjoy it, because it's not all about career. To be top of whatever it is, top of our game maybe in seeing life. So this is AA and how it helps me. Alcoholics Anonymous is a fellowship of men and women who share their experience, strength and hope with each other, that they may solve their common problem and help others to recover from alcoholism. The only requirement for membership is a desire to stop drinking. There are no dues or fees for AA membership. We are self-supporting through our own contributions. AA is not allied with any sect, denomination, politics, organisation or institution, does not wish to engage in any controversy, neither endorses nor opposes any causes. Our primary purpose is to stay sober and help other alcoholics to achieve sobriety. And I read this out every time. I read it, I don't recite it. Not because my memory, well yeah, I guess my memory could be better, but I don't train it to memorise. or recite as if by rote, or by just because I have it in my head. It has to mean something to me. And that's what the 12 steps have given me, a meaning in my life, and uniqueness and authenticity, because this is just where I am, my life experience today. And May's been all about the 5th step, and it reads exactly: admitting to God, to ourselves, and to another human being the exact nature of our wrongs. And I'll read the last page on the chapter towards the end of this video. So admitting to God, or a higher power in your life, could be just a good conscience. And to another person, it's about opening up the door of honest, open and willing to live life on life's terms. Open, honest and willing to let go denials about it wasn't too bad, it was horrible, or whatever magic mountain we created to excuse our drinking. We don't have to excuse it. It's a blameless illness. If you've got it, you've got it. It's a disease. And shame and guilt will kill you as much as anything, or trying to pretend, well, I was only just an alcoholic. If you are, you are. If you're not, you're not. There ain't no middle ground. And I crossed the line probably when I had the first drink, because it changed the way I felt. It fixed something in me. And then a lot of hard drinking for a long, long time. And I'm glad that some people get it sooner than later these days. And I admire the tenacity of someone who can admit early on in their life, this is bad for me, I'm not going to do it anymore, but I need help. So that's how fellowship has helped me. It's a group of people who get together and help each other, and what we see is what we get on a daily basis. So step 5 in May is what's been covered in this book, the daily reflections, and it's covered in other books like the 12 and 12 steps and 12 traditions. And the 12th tradition also reads as this. Sorry, the 5th tradition, which is all about unity, service and recovery. So traditions, unity, service and recovery. Steps about open, honest and willing to change our attitude and behaviour on a daily basis. So there's no cult in there, is there? I hope I said that right. Each group has but one primary purpose: to carry its message to the alcoholic who still suffers. So there's 700 groups in London, plus for AA, and God knows what else. And also meetings that people have in private with their sponsor, or their counsellor, or their professional advisor, or their priest, or whoever it might be who was there to listen to step 5, admitted the exact nature of our wrongs in our life story, which we cover in step 4, the life story. And for today, in daily reflections, and it's really important to me, it says readiness to serve others. So the traditions, as I said, unity, service and recovery. Why is that so important? We keep it by giving it away. So by sharing our experience, strength and hope in meetings, in groups, or with other people that we meet who may have the malady or the illness or the disease of alcoholism, or another one like drugs. Because if it hadn't been alcohol, I guess it would have been drugs for me too. Although I was quite frightened of that. Somehow I never got there. But I regard alcohol as the most free drug available, because it changes the way we feel. And we're normally fixing something which is not right. All I know is in sobriety everything works better. Yes, including love. And the bedroom. Anyway, well, I won't go into that. Readiness to serve others. Well, that's fairly appropriate. May 31st. Our society has concluded it has but one high mission. To carry the AA message to those who don't know there's a way out. And that comes from the 12 Steps and 12 Traditions, page 151. It goes on to say, the light to freedom shines bright on my fellow alcoholics, as each one of us challenges the other to grow. And it is about support and challenge. The steps to self-improvement have small beginnings, but each step builds the ladder out of the pit of despair to new hope. Honesty becomes my tool to unfurl the chains which bound me. A sponsor who is a caring listener can help me to truly hear the message guiding me to freedom. I ask God for the courage to keep to live in such a way that the fellowship may be a testimony to His favour. This mission frees me to share my gifts of wellness through a spirit of readiness to serve others. And that might sound a bit heavy, but of course it is, because life can be quite a heavy thing. But it ain't heavy, really, because it's fellowship, because everybody's doing it. Unity, service and recovery. But of course we do it in our own way, because we are unique, authentic people, in particular on our life path as it is today. So we hear experience, strength, hope all the time, and wisdom. Some wisdom is very useful to others, and other people's wisdom might be absolutely useless to others, same as mine. Which is why it's many voices in AA which will always carry the message, and it's not just one voice with one idea or one outlook. So my videos are just please go to AA if you're an alcoholic and have a look. If you don't like it, it's okay. You can go somewhere else, because there are other places. As Bill Wilson said, AA is not the only way. Or else, what about humility? The ability to learn that AA may fit in your life, or it may not. Fits in mine rather well. So readiness to serve others means that what people have given me over the years, which is their time to go to meetings and share what's going on for them, as much as truthful expression can be found, the truth of who we are, we only find it out today. That's so important. And we can be so forgetful. We forget everything. Otherwise, I don't know that there'll be room in our heads to carry all the stuff that has gone on over the years. What a marvellous thing the brain is if it's working. Well, working enough. But often it's our willpower, or self-will, or something in it which drives us to distraction, to be right. And I've learned that that doesn't work for me. Anyway, as Bill sees it, co-founder, Bill Wilson, or called Bill W., page 85, it says, life is not a dead end. When a man or a woman has a spiritual awakening, the most important meaning of it is that he has now become able to do, feel, and believe that which he could not do before, on his unaided strength and resources alone. He has been granted a gift which amounts to a new state of consciousness and being, a new state of consciousness and being. So consciousness and being simply means living in the now, the moment of now. So the spiritual awakening, if you like, is every day. Coping with reality, coping with life on life's terms. And that's a big deal, because if we've cut out the filtering through alcohol and obsessions around what we ought to be rather than what we are, then we have a chance to make good choices and head in the direction which is right for us, just for today. He has been set on a path which tells him he is really going somewhere, that life is not a dead end, not something to be endured or mastered or mastered, with a full stop missing. You see, picky today. In a very real sense, he has been transformed, because he has laid hold of a source of strength which he had hitherto denied himself. So, state of consciousness and being, a new one. Mine was a bit slow. I was befuddled, bewildered, and not really able or capable for quite a few years to deal with life. And that was after I stopped drinking, because I was torn apart and burnt out. And I refused to believe that for a long time. I refused and denied that life had laid me low. And it took a long time to actually say, please, I need some help, and I don't know how to get out of this. And I've stopped fighting, and I'm willing to surrender and have a go. But I need some help. And that took a long time. And the other book, if I can find it, where have I put it? Yeah. Not so organised this morning. 12 Steps and 12 Traditions, this one. For Tradition 5, I'm just going to read the last page, because I think it's relevant. Last day of the month, May 31st. And on page 61 of step 5, it reads as this: "Yet many of us still hung back. We said, why can't God as we understand him," and that is a personal understanding, your God and your understanding as you see it today, "why, as God as we understand him, tell us where we are astray? If the Creator gave us lives in the first place, then he must know in every detail where we have since gone wrong. Why don't we make our admissions to him directly? Why do we need to bring anyone else into this?" And this is about step 5, sharing the exact nature of our wrongs with another human being. At this stage, the difficulties of trying to deal rightly with God by ourselves are twofold. Though we may at first be startled to realize that God knows all about us, we are apt to get used to that quite quickly. Somehow being alone with God doesn't seem as embarrassing as facing up to another person. Until we actually sit down and talk aloud about what we have so long hidden, our willingness to clean house is still largely theoretical. When we are honest with one another, when we are honest with another person, it confirms that we have been honest with ourselves and with God. Or good conscience, our good conscience, cleaning house inside, from our life story, the exact nature of our wrongs, sharing it with another human being, and God, or in good conscience. And it is a personal belief. If you say, "I believe in God, so God please help me do this," and you're just saying it, it won't work. Why should it? We can still deny. If we're pretending to believe in something that we don't, then it won't work. We're still denying something. So God, as you come to understand, simply good conscience, or if you're an atheist or an agnostic, it's perfectly good to say, "I don't know," or I don't believe. What we need to do is clean house, and the way to do that is be open, honest and willing. And if we, I think the other part comes out now. The second difficulty is this: what comes to us alone may be garbled by our own rationalisation and wishful thinking. Or in other words, we say, well, it wasn't that bad, or it was tremendously bad and look how good I'm doing now, rather than have a balance of the truth. The truth is absolute and timeless. It's what happened. But an interpretation of the truth is a personal belief. And I'm full of that. And I'm full of it too. The benefit of talking to another person is that we can get his direct comment and counsel on our situation, and there can be no doubt in our minds what that advice is. Going it alone in spiritual matters is dangerous. In other words, going it alone in spiritual matters is dangerous means, to me, working on my own opinion and not on the truth. The truth, for me, truth, love and wisdom of life, is what God represents to me. The absolute truth, and not my belief. Truth of what has happened and sharing it. Love, which is unconditional both ways, to people and from people, and wisdom that I get from others. So I often share the absolute truth in meetings, or at least I prefer to, because if I'm living my life openly with what's going on, people can give me advice and wisdom, and if they love me or not, include me or not. How many times have we heard the well-intentioned people claim the guidance of God when it has all been too plain that they were sorely mistaken? And I've seen this many times. I'm going to go do a 12-step call. I remember this. And I said, what do you mean you're going to go do a 12-step call? You haven't even had a call. And it was their will to make themselves feel better, or find out other information which was pertinent to their life. In other words, going digging and not actually finding the truth of who they are and what was happening to them. Lacking both practice and humility, they deluded themselves and were able to justify the most arrant nonsense on the grounds that this was what God had told them. Now, if you get a bunch of people together and one of them says, "God told me to do this," it's an act of faith to believe them, or to challenge them and support them and say, "Are you sure God told you to do that?" And often the answer, if it's truth, if it's the absolute truth and not a prejudice, God didn't say anything to anyone. It's the collective understanding of mankind which represents the truth, love and wisdom of the situation. It is worth noting that people of very high spiritual development always insist on checking. with friends or spiritual advisors the guidance they feel they have received from God. Because it's a tricky thing coming out of a sickness or an ailment to say, God's told me I'm okay now, or God's telling me to do this. Actually, it's self-will still running right, often the obsession of being right, rather than the balance of wisdom, truth, love and wisdom that we get on a daily basis by being open with people. Surely then, a novice ought not to lay himself open to the chance of making foolish, perhaps tragic blunders in this fashion. While the comment or advice of others may be by no means infallible, it is likely to be far more specific than any direct guidance we may receive while we are still so inexperienced in establishing contact with a power greater than ourselves. Or why else would we have governments and, land of the free, in God we trust, all these things? Although you see government and religion are separate in most of the democratic states around the globe. Although you might wonder sometimes when people still say, this is God-inspired X, Y or Z. We work on a personal level about truth, love and wisdom. And, leaders who we vote for or don't vote for or who get in power are on quite a number of agendas. Some of them are not about truth, but personal interest. That wasn't the last page. I'll read the last bit from page 63. Apologies. As the pain subsides and healing tranquility takes its place, and when humility, humility means the ability to keep on learning life. So humility is not a bad word. And when humility and serenity are so combined, something else of great moment is apt to occur. Many an AA, once agnostic or atheist, tells us that it is during this stage of step 5 that he first actually felt the presence of God, or the presence of humanity. It doesn't have to be the understanding of God written in a book by somebody else. It's the presence of and being included in something bigger than ourselves. Even those who had faith already often become conscious of God as they never were before. And there are miracles happening all the time in common understanding around inclusion and healthiness of life these days. And big strides forward are being made, but as we go forward 2 steps, often we go 1 back. This feeling of being at one with God and man, this emerging from isolation through the open and honest sharing of our terrible burden of guilt, brings us to a resting place where we may prepare ourselves for the following steps towards a full and meaningful sobriety. So step 5, action in sharing the exact nature of our wrongs. But it's also a balance of assets and liabilities. And when it talks there about for the following steps towards a full and meaningful sobriety, step 6 and 7, June and July. I like step 6 and 7. I will share about those another day, enough time. So May all about step 5, June step 6, July step 7. 6 and 7 often called the forgotten steps, because people skip over them and want to get to the list of amends and making amends and then trying to get on life. But the trouble is, if we go too fast at the steps, we stumble because we're not being thorough, open, honest and willing. And at the same time, we're in a place of unity, service and recovery, so we see people tripping up all the time, including ourselves, because that's how we learn. And it's okay to fall over and stumble. And as often happens in early recovery, there are relapses, and there are times when it's just horrible to be in recovery, and we can even hate people in fellowship, or just hate the fellowship because we can be resentful about that which is making us well, because we prefer the old life, where life was comfortable in oblivion, until it was killing us, of course. So what helps me every day when I'm not too sure is the serenity prayer to God or good conscience, or whatever it is that is right for you. It's what you come to understand is right for you. And fellowship is a lot of people with voices. I'm just one. So lots of voices in fellowship, where what you see is what you get. And it's not about promoting a way of living. You still have to work that bit out for yourself, and within your nearest and dearest, whoever they happen to be. Or not, if you don't have any. You'll find plenty of friends in fellowship, or out there, once your head is much clearer. So the serenity prayer, the can do, can't do, and wisdom to know the difference in any moment during the day. It's a lifesaver, because it means we can restart and look at it a different way. Can do, can't do, wisdom to know the difference. Can't emphasize that enough, ever. So to God, or in good conscience, God, grant me the serenity to accept the things I cannot change, courage to change the things I can, and the wisdom to know the difference, for me, is just for today.
Don in London, hello, May 31st, 2009. And it's very sunny here in London, UK. First weekend of really, really good weather. So it's nearly June, and my video is all about recovery from addiction to either substance or behaviour, or substance and behaviour. And my substance, my favourite addictive substance was alcohol, probably still is, but I just don't drink it anymore. And my behaviour got outlandish, I guess. Most of it was to do with pleasing people, thinking that I would feel better if I did what you wanted, and not necessarily what I wanted. So there was a lot of people pleasing going on in my life, because if I looked right and felt right, I thought I must be right. And the answer was I never felt quite right. Otherwise I wouldn't become an addict, would I? So where am I today? Well, a little bit further on the path of sobriety, just one day at a time. And I live with a 24-hour program, that is, life in the day, living in the day, trying to see reality. I see reality as a spiritual connection to living, that is, to find the truth of now, to be in the ever-present moment. Idealistic? Well, I guess not these days. Just making progress, and never perfect. And for the first time in many years, I read a book through. I'll talk more about that maybe when I really appreciate and understand a story of real life and where it took a person. And the gift is, if we learn anything in this life, it's to find the truth and be able to deal with life as it happens. So for me, what helps me, family, community, society, a medical profession who know how to help me with my type 1 diabetes, not caused by lifestyle, caused by a virus, although I would have preferred to have been the perpetrator of that illness. But I also have another one called clinical depression, and that goes up and down as it does, and sometimes it's okay and life is fairly tranquil and serene, and other times it's devastatingly desolate and lonely, and it causes me to want to be isolated and just shut the door and not do anything. Horrible, but I have to face that truth, and it happens on occasion, it just does. So for me, fellowship also helped me. That is the fellowship of Alcoholics Anonymous, full of unique, authentic people, just learning how to self-heal through fellowship. So we remain unique, authentic people, hopefully, get a bit of wisdom and come away from the fellowship on a daily basis with a clearer idea of how to deal with now, without a drink and without substances, and without addictive behaviours as well. So workaholic, relationshipaholic, any oldolic, that's me, and the isms were there from a very early age, where fear, ego and brave facing were probably the most important things I learned in life from my father. And maybe from my mother I didn't learn enough courage, faith and confidence. So, you know, we are yin and yang, maybe. All those things sort of occurred to me this morning. So, my video is about recovery, one day at a time. And the message is simple, really. Stick with sobriety. And how to do that? Well, the fellowship helps me. A fellowship with one intent, to keep people sober for one day. So, yes, unique, authentic we remain. And, you know, that is the most important thing. We have one similarity. Anyway, I go to fellowship meetings of AA. I don't speak for it, never can, never will. If I did, I would be blown out of my own, I suppose. I would be working out of ego, rather than a bit of courage to share a message of hope So AA for me, and I use it, their literature, our literature, I guess it's our literature, is freely available. Well, not free, you have to pay for it. Or if you can't afford it, somebody will give it to you. The preamble shared at every meeting of AA in London goes like this. Alcoholics Anonymous is a fellowship of men and women who share their experience, strength and hope with each other, that they may solve their common problem and help others to recover from alcoholism. The only requirement for membership is the desire to stop drinking. I'll read that again. The only requirement for membership is a desire to stop drinking. There are no dues or fees for AA membership. We are self-supporting through our own contributions. AA is not allied with any sect, denomination, politics, organisation or institution. It does not wish to engage in any controversy, neither endorses nor opposes any causes. Our primary purpose is to stay sober and help other alcoholics to achieve sobriety. So the primary purpose is to stay sober and help other alcoholics achieve sobriety. And that doesn't mean we actually try and put something on a person. A person develops their own understanding of sobriety and how to make it work for them. We are self-healing, that's the process, through fellowship, where we learn wisdom and here experience strength and hope on a daily basis, or as many times as we feel is necessary to go to meetings of AA and listen some more. And some people find other ways of keeping sober or staying sober a day at a time, and I take my hat off to them, and I can only go by what is working for me now. I tried many other ways, but AA sustains me in a place where I can be with people who understand the obsession and the craving and all the things that go with addiction, and how not to be that way anymore. So these days I don't actually crave a drink, I rarely think about it. I may talk about it a lot, but that's just me. And 35 years of drinking was a long time, and it distorted my outlook completely and made me self-centered, isolated, fearful, more egotistical, more putting on a brave face, and more fearful, I guess. So the gentle process of getting to a place of confidence or self-esteem, having a bit of courage and faith to meet the day, is really where the program has taken me, and that is then supported by family, community, society. So sobriety has to come first, and then I can learn how to love, be loved, and do something useful and be a part of. There are always consequences though, and sometimes the consequences are people don't want to know us anymore, and we have to accept that. We have to accept it, take it on the chin, and it can be very, very hurtful. But the gift is forgive them for that, and also forgive ourselves for being addicted to something we couldn't stop, which distorted us from our true purpose, which is to live as best we can and make use of our time here on the planet to be happy and with other people. So the literature which I share, daily reflections, this month is month 5, and in the year, 12 steps of action. The step 5 is all about sharing our fearless moral inventory with another human being, not necessarily in the fellowship. Could be a counsellor, a priest, next door neighbour, man on the Clapham omnibus. It's who we feel we can share openly and honestly with. It's a personal choice. So yeah, step 5, absolutely critical to get all the crap out and then start with a cleaner slate, knowing always that we still have that history inside us, and it will bother us often from time to time. So on May 31st in the daily reflections, as I say, it's all about 12 steps, step 5, May. Readiness to serve others. Our society has concluded that it has but one high mission, to carry the AA message to those who don't know there's a way out. The light to freedom shines bright on my fellow alcoholics as each one of us challenges the other to grow. The steps of self-improvement are small beginnings, but each step builds the ladder out of the pit of despair to new hope. Honesty becomes my tool to unfurl the chains which bound me. A sponsor who is a caring listener can help me to truly hear the message guiding me to freedom. I can ask God for the courage to live it in such a way that the fellowship may be a testimony to His favour. This mission frees me to share my gifts of wellness through a spirit of readiness to serve others. And that's the plan. And it can be, you can share it with God, your good conscience, your understanding of a higher power, the thing which makes you understand that you're not in charge, and that we're all powerless over people, places and things. And the only thing we can get right probably is to live in the day and make the best of it and be a part of, no bigger, no smaller than anybody else. So my time is coming to an end. There is a reading in As Bill Sees It on page 118, all about prelude to the programme. And it's all about, you have to sort of get to your rock bottom before you can actually realise there is nowhere else to go before you can actually start recovery. And you know, I've tried all sorts of ways to avoid rock bottom, but I just kept hitting it over and over again, and that was my insanity. So what have I learned over the years? I need to remind myself I'm very, very human, that I am susceptible to all the ups and downs that every human has, that I need to know that I'm no different from any other human just trying to make life work. And the gift for me is an anniversary tomorrow, which I'll share more about then. So, the serenity prayer: God, grant me the serenity to accept the things I cannot change, courage to change the things I can, and the wisdom to learn the difference is always just for today. Videos, so there's a better understanding of where I'm coming from each time I do one on a daily basis. And I feel very good today, actually. But anyway, this is the preamble that I'm working on. My YouTube videos are all about living in recovery. I am an alcoholic in recovery. My story is similar to many people who have found themselves in the predicament of an illness no amount of willpower, and I emphasise that, no amount of willpower will overcome. That illness is addiction. In my case, alcohol addiction. There are many forms of addiction to substances and behaviour. While my focus is on alcohol, there are many sources of help and support around for anyone with similar issues. My recovery videos feature my daily living and ways and means of staying sober a day at a time. I share my experience, strength and hope here on YouTube, that others may find ways and means to keep to a path of sobriety, and I'm one voice amongst many. I mention and include information about the Fellowship of Alcoholics Anonymous. AA is not an organisation, simply it is a fellowship of people whose primary purpose is to stay sober and help other alcoholics into recovery from alcoholism. I do not speak for AA, and AA is not the only way to find sobriety. Like AA, I am not allied with any sect, denomination, politics, organisation or institution. I do not wish to engage in any controversy, neither endorse nor oppose any causes, and that's also true for AA too. However, the AA programme, it features 12 steps to help anyone find their own personal path to recovery. I have found the 12-step programme has helped me keep sober a day at a time for some years, and anyone who wishes to shape their attitudes and behaviour to live to the best of their good conscience may find AA helpful. As many in the fellowship have a faith in a higher power, which some call God, I have found good conscience, truth and openness work well for me. In recovery, we get our choices to live to the best of our abilities on a daily basis, and long may it be so. So that's what I'm working on in terms of the preamble, and I'm just going to put my clock on because I've got about 8 minutes left. And what's been happening for me? Well, you know, some worries and concerns about whether I'm doing the right thing and being involved and getting on with the relationship. And the simple answer is yes. When the time is right, we must do what our heart tells us and what our emotions are truly showing to us, and that is connection, inclusion, love. You know, the whole planet runs on love, and sometimes we want to be in control of love, and what I'm finding very, very clearly is I'm not in control of love, and I am powerless over people, places and things as well. And the good thing in that is people can be themselves with me, and I can be myself with them. And to find another human being who is in the same place as me and understands and has empathy and just wants to hang out, well, what can I say? I'm absolutely overjoyed. And I thought it was past. And, you know, as life unfolds, it's interesting. I go to what is known as a promises meeting of AA, and the promises say, you know, a life beyond your wildest dreams. And I don't know that I had any dreams left, either wild or otherwise, but as things are, the human condition is that we can, I suppose, move along gently and suddenly find that life is changing rather rapidly, and love it, and love the situation, and be joyful. So, in a big way, a big surprise for me that, you know, it doesn't matter what age we are, where we are, what we do. Sometimes life just throws us into a new way of being, And I feel that now. It's like a shift in me from being concerned about, I guess, the deficits rather than the assets. And this is all about 12-step program as well, because a simple program for living, open, honest and willing, will lead into inclusion and understanding and love. Love of humanity, love of what's going on, understanding the differences between what is real and what is not. And maybe, for the first time, I'm seeing reality as it is and can be, and how beautiful the world can be too, again. This is new for me, because I think for 35 years, with a very good drinking history, suppression of anything that might have been genuine and authentic was going on. And in the last 4 years, finding sobriety, it's been an absolute eye-opener on every level. And what I've found is there's no easy way to do this. So if we've found ourselves 35 years suppressing, and then a few years of not suppressing and letting everything out and sorting out the muddle that my head was in, I now find that I'm clear-headed and enjoying these particular days, really, really relishing just waking up, and sometimes waking up thinking I haven't had enough sleep, but who cares? So big change is going on, and the good news is nobody's trying to change me, and I'm not trying to change anybody else. And I feel good, unimaginably so. So a lot of joy this morning. And sometimes I feel it seems like we have to know what we're missing, and it only took a couple of days of not being in touch to realise that what was really important is feelings and understanding and mutuality. So I'm learning all over again, and I feel good about it. Anyway, I do the AA daily readings on this video, and let's see how far I get with the daily reflection, starting with this one. And for May 30th, it says, it's not a long piece here, it says our primary purpose. The more AA sticks to its primary purpose. Am I on the right day? Just let me check. No, it's May 31. I did primary purpose yesterday. Readiness to serve others. Our society has concluded that it has but one high mission: to carry the AA message to those who don't know there's a way out. And I guess I'm trying to do my best here as well. That comes from the 12 Steps and 12 Traditions, page 151. It goes on to say, the light to freedom shines bright on my fellow alcoholics as each one of us challenges the other to grow. The steps to self-improvement have small beginnings, but each step builds the ladder out of the pit of despair to new hope. Honesty becomes my tool to unfurl the chains which bound me, and the chains are in my head, and they're breaking free. And it then goes on to say, a sponsor who is a caring listener can help me to truly hear the message guiding me to freedom. Now, my sponsor's been in the programme for 30 years, and can be a cantankerous bugger at the best of times, but he has a heart of gold. And he gave me a card which he delivered, and he said on the front of it, delivered by foot rather than hand. And he goes on here, I ask God for the courage to give me in such a way I ask God for the courage to live in such a way that the fellowship may be a testimony to his favour. The mission frees me to share my gifts of wellness through the spirit of readiness to serve others. And I guess in many ways I do that here. And the understanding of what God could be, and I talk about good conscience, I don't need to understand anybody else's higher power, and for me, my understanding is the greater good, good conscience, and as Gandhi said, God is truth. Anyway, coming on to as Bill sees it for today, still keeping an eye on the clock, May 31st, or page 157, imagination can be constructive. We recall, a little ruefully, how much store we used to set by imagination as it tried to create reality out of bottles. Yes, we revelled in that sort of drinking, didn't we? And those sober nowadays, don't we often try to do too much of the same thing? Perhaps our trouble was not that we used our imagination, perhaps the trouble was our almost total inability to point imagination toward the right objectives. There's nothing the matter with truly constructive imagination. All sound achievement rests upon it. After all, no man can build a house until he first visions a plan for it. And how am I on that today? Well, my vision of the day is wonderful, and a spark, more than that, it's like somebody at a bonfire underneath me, and I suppose I've got the bellows out wafting away to keep the embers nice and hot, and that's all to the good, and it's just making life rather delicious right now. So forgive my joyfulness. If you're feeling sad and lonely, just stay in AA for 4 years and see what happens. Now, I wouldn't recommend it waiting that long. Maybe it just took me a bit longer because I was out there longer. May 31st from this book, 24 hours a day. I shall not wait to be drafted for service to AA. I shall volunteer. I shall be loyal in my attendance, generous in my living, kind in my criticism, creative in my suggestions, loving in my attitudes. I shall give to AA my interest, my enthusiasm, my devotion, and most of all myself. Do I accept this as my AA credo? Yes, because simply I said that from yesterday, so you can see my head is befuddled, but at the same time I'm not going to change a thing because I'm in the right place right now.